very pleasant good morning, everybody. We call it a Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday, and you have to peel yourself off the floor no matter who you are or what kind of condition you were in after what happened over the weekend. How are you? Can you say Final Four? Mike Lubie Lubitz. I'm Jeff DeForest. This is Defo on 5 Reason Sports Network, and wow, I mean, this comes under the heading of boy, what a game last night and the night before, as both FAU and the University of Miami make it to the Final Four. Lubie, it looked like the University of Miami and Coach L were dead in the water. They're down 13, about midway through the second half of their game against Texas. They were sort of handled late in the first half after going back and forth for most of the first half, and all of a sudden, Texas is up 8. It looks like they might even leave the floor up 10 or 12. They end up coming out and opening up the second half and getting a double-digit lead. They stayed that way for a long period of time. O'Meara's in foul trouble. The Canes are getting out-rebounded. A Texas team is getting all kinds of offensive board action, and they're converting shots off the second-chance opportunities. And it looked like we were going to have FAU and Gucci Bag Night would be the only celebration here in South Florida over the weekend, as the Canes were going to get stopped again in the Elite Eight. Certainly no disgrace, but they did have a very tough draw. You could have made that excuse for them. They drew Houston, a number 1 seed in the previous game, then come right back with Tennessee, a number 2 seed in the game after that. And then all of a sudden, a switch was turned, as if Jim Larinaga again called for the full court press. Only this time, it was a much better defensive effort. They stepped it up there. They started making those short jumpers. And oddly enough, without making a three in the second half, in the entire second half, they come back from 13 down and win the game going away by 7 points. And lo and behold, we have 2 of the 4 teams in what looked like a very improbable and impossible to pick Final Four. But wow, I mean, the FAU excitement was one thing. We wanted to get the second team home. Of course, we're big fans of Coach L. I had a long-time relationship with him since he took over the program here on the show, and he's always very gracious, and I would imagine we'll have him on sometime this week, although you have to think the interview request for both Dusty May, who now is he's my second favorite Dusty at this point. He's right behind Dusty Rhodes. If he wins a game in the Final Four, if he manages to get to the title game, then he eclipses Dusty Rhodes and anything the American dream could have done. And he's ahead of Dusty Baker and Dusty Springfield. What do you think, Lubie? What was your reaction to all of that?
Baker. I just dumbfounded by the whole weekend. I just sat there because it's so loud.
How is this possible?
This is comical. First of all, yes, if you want to take it from the basketball standpoint, neither should be in the Final Four. UM actually was good all year, and if they don't lose O'Meara in the AC tournament, they probably win it. And if they do win the AC tournament, they're probably a 2 or 3 seed. So they are more probable in the Final Four, considering they made the Elite Eight last year. But even then, most people did not pick them to the Final Four. So them making it is, oh wow, good for them. FAU is just a joke. Like FAU being in the Final Four is just literally, to me,
it's a commuter school, man. People were driving there from PF Chang's. They would have lunch, go to class, and that would be it. They'd go home and do their homework and come back the next day.
Poking fun at the whole thing. But to me, when you take it out of basketball, just the area of South Florida, the fact that I wasn't joking. I was at 2 different bars last week doing our trivia. You're out and about. No one was watching or talking about the Canes, or FAU. No one. So the fact that the Final Four, which outside of the college football playoff is the second biggest sporting, I guess Super Bowl, it's top 3 in sporting events when it comes to America. No one watches college basketball anymore all year, fine. But the Final Four itself is nationally a big deal. Down here, no one gave a shit. So the fact that we have 2 of the 4 combatants, I think is the most comical thing in the whole world. I think it's just funny to me. I just think it's funny that all these areas that take college basketball seriously, they're going to be sitting at home watching FAU, UM, San Diego State, and UConn.
UConn, the only repeater, is a Final Four team. All the others are in there for their maiden voyage, including the University of Miami, which had Rick Barry at one time on their roster. Never made it to a Final Four in the past. Coach L is the only guy with the program who's been there before. And, of course, he did it with a number 11 seed, now well-documented 2006 with George Mason. And, that got a lot of referrals during the course of the last couple of days of the tournament. But I thought it was impossible. I had UM getting knocked out by Indiana in the second round of the tournament, and I had FAU getting flattened by Purdue in the second round of the tournament.
Yes.
Now, FAU has actually had an easier road, although they've acquitted
Yes.
themselves very well, and they hung in there. Their late game resilience is pretty incredible. I'm sounding like Jay Billis now. Well, what about their late game resilience, Jay? Well, I think it's pretty good. It's at the highest level. I tell you what, they're right up there with UCLA and any of the big teams that you've seen throughout history. But they do respond late in the game. And then we can't ignore Jordan Miller for individual accolades for the
What a
game
game.
yesterday. So only been done once before since, I believe, 1960, where you've had a 20 shot combination of free throws and shots from the field and made them all 13 for 13 from the line, 7 for 7 from the field. And he led the parade to the free throw stripe at the end of the ball game, where the Hurricanes, it's interesting because they actually won the game going away by 7,
Because of the free throws, where
which
that
is
game
amazing. Yes.
he made it. Usually you'll miss one here and there, and that allows him to keep it around. I'm like, no, he made it every free throw.
Knocked down just about everything. I think they might have missed 2 free throws it's either in the second half or in the entire ball game.
It was impressive.
Incredible free throw shooting. The resolve of Coach Larinaga, he never seems to be at all, unnerved during the course of the ball game, and he lets these guys play. The other thing that's interesting is they weren't getting the 3-point shot that was being
Oh,
defended very well
wow.
by Texas in the game. They were having trouble getting them off, and so they took it inside. And on a series, you didn't even know you were watching the same game. You would have thought it was an old era of basketball where guys were working their way inside, taking those 12, 14-foot jumpers and canning them. Isaiah Wong woke up in the second half after a slow first half. Jordan Miller was great. And Nigel Pack made some shots from the inside. Real incredible performance by both teams. I was thinking, and I've been here since 1981, Lubie. Although I keep debating, I keep trying to do the math on that, but I'm going to go by the birth of my son and assume that I got to South Florida from Los Angeles in July of 1981. All right.
Yes, he was born
And
here.
I've seen a zillion things. I guess the first really colossal thing that happened while I was down here was the Canes in 1983, going on to the '84 Orange Bowl, beating Nebraska. That's probably, that's among the top sporting events. That would have to be on the Mount Rushmore of sports accomplishments in South Florida. Certainly while I've been here, and maybe all time. But would you agree with that? I'm going to put the Ali, which was Cassius Clay, Sonny Liston fight 1964, as one of the biggest and meaningful sports events of all time, because it launched Ali to a platform where, had he gotten knocked out by Sonny Liston, I don't know that we ever hear from the guy again. And that was at the Miami Beach Convention Center in 1964. You've had Super Bowl games here, including the original Super Bowl games being played at the Orange Bowl. Super Bowl III, I guess, would be the second event. I wasn't here for that, but 1969, a Super Bowl with Joe Namath winning over the heavily favored Baltimore Colts, probably the second most iconic sporting event that ever took place here. That 83-84 hurricane season, where they won the Orange Bowl over Nebraska as 17-point underdogs, colossal. But I've seen a lot of things. We had the Heat come into existence, 88-89 season.
Riley
Marino being drafted in 1983, 1984. The Dolphins, what? They went to the Super Bowl that year, did they not? First year of
Yes.
Marino. And then the '85 game against the Bears, what was an iconic, that night game at the Orange Bowl was just absolutely fantastic. I had the pleasure of being there, and it was every bit the thrill in Manila that you look for in a sporting event. Had the Marlins come along in '93. I was at Game 7 of the '97 World Series. That was terrific. We had the Heat win a championship with Dwayne Wade after the Shaqquisition in '06. A lot of stuff you could point to. Panthers run to the 96-97 Stanley Cup Finals, where they get swept by the Avalanche, but made it all the way there. And then just an absolutely incredible game and a battle between the human frog, Patrick Waugh. Can we say human frog? That's kind of a disparaging remark
I
about
guess.
Canadians, isn't it?
He's
They don't
Canadian.
like being called frogs. I don't blame them.
I didn't know that was a slur, but okay, sure. It could
Could it
be.
be a slur? I'm not sure.
President can be. I don't know.
Anyway, we hated Patrick Waugh at the time because
Yes.
he shut out the Panthers, and Van Beesbrook was standing on his head the entire
Correct.
game, and they
Yes.
still couldn't take a game in the Stanley Cup
Wow.
Finals against the vaunted Colorado Avalanche. And there have been other things, but I don't know that I've ever seen anything that smacks as being so incredible. you couldn't have anticipated a lot of that stuff. I mean, the Hurricane football program before Schnelly took over, what was on the brink of extinction.
Yeah, I would say there's a bunch of stuff we've had that have been all amazing. Riley coming, Wade being drafted, that you were sort of getting into a theme, things happening that led to greater things, right? Whether it's
Yes.
Ali to now he's known as the greatest athlete ever. Before then,
Right. I mean, if Liston hits him with a right hand in the first round and he's in the second row there, and what was the guy's name? Freddie Freeman, I believe, was the ring announcer. If he's in that guy's lap,
changes sports history. I mean, it just does. So there's that.
changes culture. I mean, American culture, I believe, also, and world culture.
He's an icon. I mean, especially in many different ways outside of sports. The other events, you named a bunch that were big in building South Florida sports. The Canes gave life to what went on to be a dynasty. That title, and again,
5 championships. Yeah.
The Marlins was pretty cool. But the things to me that are most shocking were that Canes team, because within like 2 or 3 years before that, they almost did that Panthers team, because they actually didn't have a bunch of studs at all. It was a bunch of randoms.
No, they were grinders. They were all grinders.
And their path to the Stanley Cup was a fucking murderer's row. Like the Flyers were loaded. People thought they could win it. The Penguins were a team that had won multiple championships and were still in their prime to win a championship. The Bruins had like a Cam, like
what a modown
run was freaking loaded. And then they went up against an Avalanche team that is probably a top 5 roster, top 5, top 10 roster ever. That roster was loaded with Hall of Famers. So like that was surprising. And then this, like the Marlins were supposed to be good. The Heat, once you got Shaq, you were supposed to be good. Like the Dolphins, when they won, were supposed to be good, right? Shula had already shown what they like. Talking about surprising, what's going on right now is like,
oh, this is shocking.
Like an FAU, we made fun of it. Like Sarny should be a billionaire. Like Sarny, if he had put money behind all of the crazy shit he said all year that we mocked, we mocked all of it. Like FAU, who gives a shit? UM,
we owed a debt of gratitude to Sarny for
Nova won a title. Like as much as we mock it, they won on a title.
Yeah.
Going undefeated, like in dominant fashion. Like,
it's basketball country, my friend. Never mind. I mean, people didn't even know that basketballs were around here. Although you did have a lot of ex-Northeasterners and people from around the country that played a lot of basketball. Because I used to play basketball here every night from the time I was like 30 till I was 40. And there were always people out there playing, and they were fans, mostly of other teams, because we didn't have our own team here until 1988, and the speculation still wasn't all that convincing that Miami was going to be a place that could acquire both a basketball and a hockey team, and B, sustain any level of interest in them, and that still remains to be seen with baseball. Although, we have a team here, and I doubt that they're going anywhere anytime soon. I don't see.
Anyone notice?
If they moved, yeah. I mean, if they weren't playing here this year, it would take half the season for people to wake up and notice.
Like a tree.
But we are NCAA hoops history here in South Florida right now. Florida Atlantic and the University of Miami. We hope to get both coaches on our show on South Florida Live. Yes, all of a sudden.
I was ahead of the curve this time. I was like, I'm not even wasting time this time. They're going to be inundated. Dusty May is going to be interesting because a school like FAU is not used to attention like this.
Do they even have an SID? They do. Yes. Very cooperative with us. Yes.
SID. They have a person above the SID who we deal with, Katrina. They have Evan. And then they have an AD. Now, they promised me the AD, which usually we wouldn't want the AD. But in a week like this, I'll hail FAU.
We'll take somebody, yes.
Trying to get Dusty
Schnelly from the grave would be great, but Dusty May would be even better.
Believe that for you. We should get Schnelly, both of his first loves. And Larinaga, because we have been with UM in a different
I'm fairly confident Jim Larinaga will do our
Larinaga, I was given a very different communication. The FAU person was like, yeah, we're slammed. I'll do what I can. UM was like, I will make sure we take care of you.
Wow.
Just remind me tomorrow. I got
That's beautiful.
Like, I figured. I mean, it's Larinaga. Like we've been there the whole time.
Well, we have a great love for Jim Larinaga. I believe, like I said, ever since I mentioned Eddie Malloy to this guy, how could he possibly turn us down for an interview? His arch rival in high school that nobody ever heard of. And there was a young 16-year-old Deef trying to defend this guy as he made one marvelous John Stockton-like pass after another to Dr. J and the late great Dick McGuire.
That's
All
amazing.
right, it's exciting stuff, and we have a lot on our plate, so to speak, for the entire week here on Defo on Five. Many other things were happening and transpiring in the world of sports, but paled in comparison to the phenomenon of
That game
both
was
Florida Atlantic University and the University of Miami being in the basketball Final Four in the NCAA tournament. Two thrilling games for each team over the weekend, and that they prevailed, but was equally remarkable. Both teams. UM was always having to answer back for FAU.
yes, yes.
As FAU was setting a pace there with these victories the previous day. And I thought, wow, at least we got one team in the Final Four.
That's
But when the
crazy.
Canes were down 13, that game was not trending in the Hurricanes' favor. So remarkable wake-up call and comeback once again, as they had against Drake. And we have made history here. And as far as I'm concerned, as significant as anything that's ever happened here on the South Florida sports scene, in spite of the fact no championship has been accomplished yet, two teams in the Final Four from the South Florida area seemed a virtual impossibility. It's happened, my friends. Miracles do happen. And we'll see you later on in South Florida Live, the Defo Show, and of course tomorrow right here on 5 Reasons Sports Network with Defo on 5.